I've been asked to speak on the subject of exploring dimensions of innovation. Exploring dimensions of innovation, expressing leadership from within. So, it's a double pleasure for me to speak at this. First, IIT Kharagpur is my beloved alma mater, which shaped me and taught me whatever little I've learned in life. And Partha is a very distinguished fellow alum of this institute, belonging to this approximately 1960s generation of students. So in my humble view, this is a double engine. There are other things described as double engine, but for me, this is a double engine. My topic today concerns the dimensions of innovation and leadership. Now, innovation and leadership are interconnected. Much like oxygen is interconnected with lungs. There's no point breathing oxygen if you don't have lungs. And if you don't have a lung, the oxygen is not of much use. And innovation demands leadership, and leadership demands
innovation.
And the third last double engine, which I've identified, that both of them, innovation and leadership, have roots within a person. Though it is influenced by external stimuli. And there are very strong social, cultural, psychological roots visible, for example, in the way India innovates as compared to some Occidental societies. So the Partha Ghosh Academy for Leadership seeks to combine the relevant parts, of positives from both Indian and Western wisdom. And as the Institute develops distinctive pedagogy and propagates ideas on innovation and leadership, I think this is a very important part. Already this evening, people have referred to Vedanta and Upanishads and classical tradition. Let me take another example just to show how Indian classical music and Western classical music are seemingly different, and yet there are similarities. Let's take a classical Western orchestra. All of us have listened to Western orchestra. Both of these schools of music, classical music, are creative, they are rich, and they're enduring. In the Western classical music, the orchestra includes many artists, as many as 100. And these people are highly focused on their specialty. They are directed by the score sheet and are beholden to the conductor. If you see them coming on the stage, there is a visible discipline. I've rarely seen artists who are smiling at you or waving at you. Conductor may, because he's the hero. So serious looking artists walk onto the stage, take their allotted positions with great discipline, and then they adjust the score sheet in front of them, and then they wait for the conductor to come. And there is drama in the way the conductor comes. And the drama and panache that he describes, accompanied often by applause of the audience. During the performance, the audience is not expected to show its appreciation whenever they feel like. There are sort of well understood interregnums in the orchestra when people can clap. And if a person claps at the wrong time, he or she will get a nudge from a cognoscenti sitting somewhere close by. So there is a great deal of creativity and discipline. The outer layer is discipline, the inner layer is creativity. That there is creativity cannot be disputed. That there is discipline cannot be disputed because you're seeing it all the time. Now look at an Indian classical music. Firstly, you don't have 100 people. 4, 5, 6. I'm not talking about Bollywood, I'm talking about classical music. And these 4, 5 people are much smaller in number. They take the stage with a gait of humility and friendliness. They're smiling at you. They're wearing their dhoti or their lungi or their kurta pajama, whatever. There is no score sheet and there is no conductor, right? they just sort of get cracking. So it seems to the layperson. I mean, they have their own uh, invisible disciplines. Let's not forget that. As they play, they seem to be talking to each other and they challenge one another. What lay people call sawal, jawab, and all that stuff. They seem to be improvising. One person does this and the other person says that to reply. And they are all enjoying themselves. And the showmanship is passed from one artist to the other. The vocalist will let the violinist have his show. The violinist will tell the mridangam fellow to have his show, and so on and so forth. And above all, the audience, which is enjoying the show, is free to clap whenever they feel like and to utter whichever words they like. Wah, wah, wah. Bahut khoob. You will never see this happening in a Western orchestra. And the fact of the matter is, both of these schools of music, classical music, produce fantastic music. Both have the same ingredients, creativity and discipline. But like they teach you in immersion chemistry, one has inside, the other one has discipline inside, but creativity outside. And you know that emulsions where you reverse it, fat in oil or oil in fat, can behave quite differently and have different effects. This is not a theoretical idea. I learned this when I joined Unilever. I grew up in India all my life, and then I joined a Western origin company, Unilever. And they had a management style which was quite different from whatever little I knew at that time. And gradually I adapted to their ways of working. Otherwise, I wouldn't have survived there 31 years. So Partha did the same thing. I mean, he also grew up in a very Indian environment. Then he joined McKinsey, which has a very American Anglo-Saxon way of working. So the essence of innovation and leadership. I'm not saying Partha and I are exemplars, but I would certainly say that we tried, and we would encourage future leaders to try to adopt the best of Western and Indian tradition. And that's what PGAL is all about. And I want to take one more example to show that this is not a pedantic thing. In Indian tradition, you deprecate conformity without conviction. For example, even the Lord Buddha said, listen to my sermon, but don't accept it just because I said so. Think about it. Debate it amongst yourselves. Debate it here in the sabha where you're sitting. And if you don't agree, that's fine. But if you do agree, then you become a part of the Goshti, the tribe. You know that Shankaracharya and Ramanuja exemplified the technique of tarka and vitark. So debate is something that, unlike some of the Abrahamic religions, where there is no such email here, there is no tablet. And that's why Indians are so noisy. I mean, Amartya Sen called them the argumentative Indian. Although Amit Patra said we are very docile people, that's not necessarily the case. The noisiest democracy in the world is India. We are docile when it comes to our boss, but that's a different thing. We are not a docile people. And if you go to any MBA class, as I have, you'll find that the first guys who finished reading the case study and put up their hand to comment on how stupid the CEO was are the Indian guys there. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm only pointing out a behavioral aspect. Why do I mention? If you don't believe me, just go and watch the TV news anchor. You'll find that Indians will speak simultaneously. They'll talk across each other. These are not habits I'm asking you to follow. I'm merely stating the reality. That's all. I'm neither criticizing it, nor am I eulogizing it. But this is part of the tradition. It's part of the culture. Grew up. I realized this when I went to the UK for the first time. And I found in every meeting, they spoke one after the other. It was rude to cross-talk. And every meeting ended with somebody saying, so we have agreed the 3 Ws. who will do what, when. Many Indian meetings don't end with 3 Ws. They just end. And many people walk out with different impressions of what the Ws are. Why have I taken so much time, last 10 minutes, to speak about this? This is not to say Indian culture is better or worse, or Indian tradition is better or worse, but to merely point out that if you've grown up here, you take these things for granted. And when you go and see it from outside, you say there are other people who do it differently. And the essence of it is that culture is where the roots of our innovation and leadership spring. And therefore it is different. And I'm not here to praise that, therefore this is fantastic. It's not. It may be, it may not be. It depends on the circumstance. I would like to, in line with the theme of innovation and leadership, talk a little bit about some myths and realities about innovation, which come out of this understanding of the roots being in your own culture. You know, if you read, as I have read, a reasonable amount of literature about innovation, the first thing that you read very often is that as you age, you lose innovative power. That's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. My IIT batchmate, Dr. Anjan Bose, who's now a Regents Chair Professor in the United States, he pointed out to me when I was writing my book on innovation that age is not an impediment to new learning, but motivation and determination are an impediment. And he used to give the example of a person called Dr. John Goodenough. Now, that's an unusual name. But he said, you watch in the next few years, this man is going to get a Nobel Prize. And at the age of 97, John Goodenough got the Nobel Prize for chemistry, which is 2019, 3 years ago. Now, that's an exception. Most of us at 97 will suffer from dementia, unfortunately. But I'm merely pointing out that we should not be sucked into the mythology that age prevents you from being creative.